Welcome back to the Omni Wellness Studio Podcast. Thank you again for tuning in. We got another special episode in store for you today. Like always, if you like the content we're putting out and the message, leave us a review, subscribe, give us some love. So tell me, got Richard Eberhart on. Did I say that right?
You did, yes.
Awesome, man. Well, this is kind of different because we literally just met a few minutes ago. Now we're on the air.
Okay.
So obviously not live, but just from what you've discussed already, man, I'm like, you got a lot of information up in your head about specializing and being so passionate about diabetes and helping people with diabetes.
Well, I was diagnosed with diabetes here in Rome, February 1980. I don't remember a lot of dates, but that one sticks. So 43 years as a type 1 diabetic with no complications. That's kind of not normal.
So tell me if I'm wrong, type 1 diabetes is something you're born with?
It's an autoimmune illness.
Okay.
So I was 8 years old, started experiencing I started wetting the bed in the second grade. Well, that's not normal. And I was losing weight. I was, back then we were not the size we are now, but I started losing weight. This went on for about 2 weeks. My mom said, okay, I think he has diabetes. We're going to the doctor.
So she knew something was up.
Oh, yeah. And I was diagnosed, put in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 8 days. It was strange.
8 days in the second grade.
Yep.
Dang, man.
And so hospitals were different then. I remember my class coming to see me. I mean, like the whole class came. And
that's nice of them.
Yeah, that was that doesn't happen nowadays.
No.
I remember the nurses telling me and my mom that, don't worry, this will be cured in 10 years. Well, that was 43 years ago. And
it never come around.
No, I mean, I've seen changes in this time period from when I went home from the hospital. I didn't have an ability to check my blood sugar. I only checked urine. That's not an accurate way of doing things.
I didn't even know you could even do that.
And then, so I had been a diabetic for about a year. About 1981, I got my first glucose meter. Took 4 minutes to check my blood sugar. I have a glucose meter at the house now that does it in 5 seconds.
So just for our listeners, and even for me, I need to get more educated on how the diabetic thing works as far as type 1, type 2. Type 1 is where your blood sugar can get too low.
No, it'll run high.
Okay.
And it's the insulin that will cause the low blood sugar.
Gotcha.
Type 1 is a autoimmune. It's the body, for some reason, attacked the pancreas, destroyed the beta cells that create insulin. Type 2 diabetes is it's a lifestyle disease. It is not genetic.
What's the most popular in America right now? I would
right now it's type 2.
Yeah.
So if we look at the 35 million patients with diabetes in America, 93% of them have type 2. And
you would agree that most of them could probably eliminate it with just some lifestyle changes?
Absolutely. That is a
90-something% of it.
Yes. It's 100%.
100%. Wow.
It is literally, there's a test out there called C-peptide that will test how much insulin your body is actually making. If that number is elevated, there's no need to put these patients on insulin. You could do a lifestyle change everything up, and
man, it's the foods they're eating.
And the foods they're eating. God gave us 2 hands. This is what we're supposed to eat with. This is the size we're supposed to eat. Yeah. We are not supposed to use a platter to eat buffet. Yeah, to eat every meal.
Speaking of food, we're going to be bouncing around all over the place, and you just have to hang on for the ride. And you listener too, because I'm going to be just like a kid in a candy shop here, because I got a lot of questions for you. I'm excited because it's not very often you have somebody that I feel like you specialize in this. Well, you're a specialist. I know you don't have like a degree.
I do not have a doctorate, but I do have my bachelor's degree in nursing. I was
that's right,
certified diabetes educator.
So there you go. At
the hospital.
So you're the real deal, man.
Yes.
So the one thing that we were talking about before we hit record was you were telling me a story about you were somewhere way off the beaten path, and your buddy was asking him, "Hey, is there a convenience store somewhere?" Tell me, dive back into that conversation with him about the Cokes.
So
while we talked about it, the high fructose corn syrup,
and talking about the way America has changed our food. I was hiking on the Appalachian Trail in Georgia. A guy wanted a Coke because, you've been out in the woods for multiple days. You just have cravings for certain things.
Yeah, more than just water.
Right.
Yeah.
And he wanted to know if there was a Mexican grocery store. And
you're like,
and I was like, you're not going to find a Mexican grocery store way up in the mountains of North Georgia. I said, why do you want a Mexican Coke? And he goes, well, Mexico Cokes don't have high fructose corn syrup.
That's wild.
They have cane sugar.
Cane sugar.
And so I get back home and I go to the Mexican grocery stores, and sure enough, you go in there, and if you flip their Coke bottles around, it'll say bottled in Mexico City.
It's different.
And you look at the ingredients, and the ingredients say made with cane sugar. It doesn't say high fructose corn syrup.
And they don't allow that in Mexico.
Nope.
Because they know the impact it would have on their people.
Well, it's not natural, and it takes a lot of science to turn a piece of corn into a syrup.
And why do we do that here in America? Because it's got to boil down to the dollar somewhere.
It's $1, yeah.
I mean, it's
absolutely. It's I'm old. Back in the 80s, your corn took 121 days to harvest. You plant it, 121 days later you could harvest it. They now have corn that you can harvest out in 64 days.
Dang.
If you're cutting it and you're getting the same amount of corn,
right? Yeah.
You got to figure out something to do with it.
Yeah, man.
I mean, and so you think about, they turn corn into high fructose corn syrup, but then they also turn it into ethanol. They put it in our gasoline. That's probably not the best thing to be putting in your mouth.
So what does high fructose corn syrup do inside the body different than regular cane sugar?
The body doesn't recognize it to start with. It will spike the blood sugar up, but then it doesn't know what to do. You're trying to confuse it, and that's just like with genetically modified wheat. So, I'm
bread.
I'm a carb eater.
Your common bread, slices of bread at the grocery store, are pretty much all of them 90% GMO.
Yes, absolutely. And what I have found on my journey, that I had experts tell me, eat sourdough instead of regular bread. Because, do you know anything about sourdough?
I do. My mom makes the best.
Okay.
And I know she has to keep the yeast, starter yeast in the fridge, or whatever, and that's what she uses to.
And so it bubbles.
Ferment.
Well, when it bubbles, you're right. It's fermenting, and it's eating up its energy source.
Cool. Okay.
So when you eat it, it's already been digested. So now you get the opportunity to have bread that you don't have this crazy blood sugar spike.
So it's already pre-digested.
Yes.
That's a simple
just like eating fermented vegetables.
Sauerkraut.
Those are all those probiotics.
Yep. I had some this morning.
Same thing happens with sourdough, but I want to put this out there. You can't just go to a grocery store and buy sourdough.
You can't,
because they have learned that they can manipulate the ingredient, and so they put vinegar in it, makes it sour, and they call it sourdough. It's not sourdough.
No, it's not. And that's I see what process it takes for my own mother to make a sourdough bread. There's no way you can commercially produce that.
No, and that's so, like, for me and my wife, it takes us 2 weeks to take the starter to get it to grow to the point that you can now call it sourdough.
Man.
And it's and we have it. We have a ritual. we get up in the morning and we'd have our coffee, but every evening we are feeding our sourdough.
That's awesome. So what do you think about is the whole Ezekiel bread, the sprouted and Dave's Killer bread, some of that stuff a little bit better choice than your plain?
A whole lot better choice.
Okay.
You are, if you want to play an experiment with kids, I'm the educator at a diabetic camp in the summertime. So we did an experiment and we used the Ezekiel bread.
This is with kids?
Yep.
For a diabetic kids camp?
Yep.
Really?
Kids with type 1 diabetes. And so I did a little experiment. We took a piece of Ezekiel bread. I sprayed it with water. I put it inside a Ziploc bag, closed it up, put it on a windowsill where it would get a lot of sunlight on it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they call it sprouted bread. You give it 24 hours and it's growing. It literally was growing. Cool. And eating food like that is actually how our forefathers, we were hunter gatherers.
Oh yeah.
We were more gatherers than hunters because the skill of taking something.
And like you said, you've listened to a few of our shows, and you mentioned that I like to use the word Jesus foods.
Yes. And
I'm always find myself thinking about how things have changed a lot, on how humans eat and the way food's produced, and how we're not supposed to have all this variety in 4, 5, 6, 8 meals a day and breakfast every day and all this eating every 2 hours. That's not really how it was 1,000 years ago.
No.
And there was some people that probably never saw a banana in their lifetime.
Right.
Depending on where you lived.
If you lived in northern United States.
What's a banana?
Yeah.
And it's just like how polar opposite are we now compared to where we were? And look at the disease. And speaking of Hispanics, you don't see a lot of unhealthy, obese Hispanic people. And when I used to install DirecTV at people's homes, I noticed a pattern. When I would go to their homes, I kind of paid attention to how they were. When you're in homes for 3 hours, you can kind of pick up clues and put patterns together. And I realized, hey, these guys they're real big on gardening. Yep. They got chickens, and they eat really clean, like off the land. Most of them do.
Yeah, and then so we here in our town, we are loaded with Mexican restaurants.
Yes. And car washes.
And when you go to a Mexican restaurant and you order fajitas, they're going to ask you, do you want flour or corn? Well, they don't have flour in Mexico. They only eat corn. Well, have you ever noticed the big difference between flour and corn tortillas? The flour tortilla is 9 inches. The corn tortilla is 4.
Small, yeah.
That is what you're supposed to eat.
Golly, man.
You're supposed to eat something that fits in your hand.
And you're right. But if you ask like a true blue Hispanic, they'll say that 80% of the menu over there is not even really authentic.
That's not real. Yeah,
Mexican food.
They don't.
It was American Mexican.
Yeah, I went on me and my wife went on vacation. We went to Mexico, and we did a Jeep tour. We drove around the towns. Man. We got to see their market.
Yeah.
We went to a cave to go swimming.
Hey man, that's awesome.
It was, and then we had this big buffet on the beach. And
they supplied it, and you were like, what is all this? It was
all there, and I was looking. I was like, my eyes were huge because I love,
the real deal,
real food. And there was a guy there that was like, where's the lettuce? And he kept calling
where's
everybody,
the cheese dip?
Hey, Jose, where's the lettuce? And he says, well, my name's not Jose. And we don't eat lettuce because it doesn't have a flavor.
Right.
And if you look at real authentic Mexican, they use cabbage and radishes.
Cool, man.
They don't use iceberg lettuce. And then he wanted to know where the sour cream is. And they said, we don't eat rotten stuff either. And it was so funny that he was saying this, but they had 3 different varieties of guacamole.
Really? And I love me some avocados.
Oh, yeah.
If you can make your own.
And, I mean, when I was there, I was like, this is the way we're supposed to be eating. Why do we not? And
I know, man.
And they had soups. Everywhere we went, they had soups. I go to the Mexican restaurants here, and I say, well, do y'all have, pozole? And they were like, well, we kind of make that at home.
Right. Yeah. They know what it is, but they just don't do it there at the restaurant.
I'm like, why don't y'all not do that here at the restaurant?
Is there any?
Like, nobody will eat it.
Is there any authentic Mexican restaurants in the area? Somebody told me there's one out in West Rome that's kind of true blue.
I don't know.
Where the Waffle House used to be or something like that right there across from Hobby Lobby. Not Hobby Lobby, but Harbor Freight and all that in town. But
I have not been
check
there.
that. But I was told by several people they were real deal.
So, real deal. If you want real Mexican, the Mexican grocery store on Shoulder Avenue, right next to Westminster Presbyterian Church. It's a grocery store, got a butcher in the back, and they have there's a little small restaurant in there, and they have authentic Mexican.
That's where
food.
I go and get my plantains.
Okay,
I love those. You ever cooked plantains?
I have.
That's a good little dessert.
Have you ever had the red bananas?
No, man. Just plantains.
Their real name is red bananas, but when you go look at them, they're going to look purple. They taste like bananas soaked in cream. So
my buddy Stephen Googe, he's a local guy, a friend of mine. He owns a tree company, but he's real artsy and kind of hippie.
Yeah,
he's the same way as you. He believes the same way. He eat real food, authentic. Yes. And he told me, he gave me this recipe. He said, go get you the darkest, most rotten looking plantains you can find at the Mexican grocery store.
Yep.
Go home, and I want you to peel them and put the plantains or in the microwave. Yeah, put some slits in it. Put in the microwave, soften them up.
Yeah.
And then put them in a skillet with some coconut oil.
Yep.
And just kind of bake them and get them kind of crispy on each side. And then you can put some honey drizzle on it. You can spread a little bit of avocado on it.
Yeah.
Some cinnamon, and it's the most filling, like almost dessert.
Yeah.
High nutrition bomb.
And
I've ever had in my life, man.
But see, that's where you're talking.
It's crazy.
You're eating food that tastes good. And it actually fueled your body, which is what it was supposed to do.
So good, man.
I mean,
I'm gonna go have me some tonight.
Yeah. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, says that let food be your medicine and medicine be your food.
Yeah.
Everything out there,
I believe it,
is what we're eating in the United States. And I am a diehard patriot. My dad served in the Navy. I have diabetes, so I was unable to serve. My son's in the military today, and I'm all for the United States of America, but our food is killing us.
It is, man. It's like we're one of the most advanced, like, to me, like, countries, but we're the sickest and the fattest.
We are.
It's crazy, dude. It don't match up,
and
it don't ever.
So. We talked earlier about the 93% of Americans that have diabetes have type 2. When I was diagnosed in 1980, it was completely opposite. 90% of the people that had diabetes in 1980 were type 1s. That number just started changing very rapidly. By 1990, we were probably in the neighborhood of 60-40, type 1 to type 2. By the end of the 90s, we have completely flipped. We're 60% type 2. Today, we're 93% type 2.
You know, I think I always look and like go back in history and like think about pivotal moments where things took a turn for the worse. And I think you'll agree that how bad do you think, fast food in general was, was an evolution back in the 60s and 70s.
Sure.
Started popping up on every corner. Well, at first, most restaurants were using beef tallow and lard to fry stuff in, and that was a natural fat source that your body recognized. And then somewhere along the way, they realized that, hey, we can cook with vegetable oil and save money. But guess what vegetable oil does? Massive inflammation.
So the exact same thing with high fructose corn syrup.
Your body knows what it is.
How much vegetable out there have you ever squeezed and got oil out of? So what chemical process did they put that through?
A lot of heat.
And so
pressing.
So I'm not a vegetarian. I'm probably on a good week 80-20, 80% vegetable, whole grains, 20% meat. But we have friends that raise cows, so they're grass fed.
Love it.
And I'm probably the only one that says, hey, when y'all send one, to the market,
Yeah.
I would like to have 10 pounds of fat. And they're like, well, what do you want the fat for? I turn it into tallow.
I love it, man. There's a farm in Rockmart called Carlton Farm.
Yep.
And that's where I used to live out that way. That's where I grew up.
Okay.
And it's been in my mind to go visit them. I actually want to do a video about it.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the coolest
yeah.
places in the family and the history.
Yeah.
Grass-fed Jersey cow for
Yep.
milk. And I actually used to buy raw milk there and drink it and make my own butter with it.
Yeah. My wife makes our own butter. So.
And I did a little experiment with my niece. And she's got memories to this day of me showing her how to take some of that raw butter and set it out on the counter.
Yeah.
And the cream will rise to the top.
Yep.
Skim that off. Or just pour some in a mason jar and shake it.
Yep.
Shake it. We both took turns shaking that mason jar, and all of a sudden you started seeing that butter kind of start collaborate, clumping together. Strain it off, salt it a little bit.
Yep.
Man, that thing is so
it's
good.
And
so good.
And it is your body recognizes that.
But media and all that has just said, don't you ever dare drink anything raw because you're definitely playing with fire, on salmonella, and of course you are, but do your research. I wouldn't want to just buy raw milk from a freaking guy on the street corner, but from a farm that's been in business since the late 1800s.
And you can ask them very simply.
Yes.
How do you prep before you milk your cows? If they're following safety procedures.
Oh, and they give tours. They invite you in.
Yeah,
they invite you in and watch them do it, and I love that. And real food, man. They got a little silo honor system store where you go in there and you get your goods, your beef, your honey, your milk, and they even do the soaps.
Yeah,
and from the lard. Yeah, and that's how soap was discovered.
Right
over a campfire.
Yeah,
you know that.
Yeah, and so this is. And I fight with teaching people that come to me and go, hey, I need to get control, but I don't have enough money. I can't eat the way you eat. And I said, that's wrong, because you can. It's not that much more expense. But you have to think a little bit. Going to the grocery store. Stay on the outside of the grocery store.
Perimeter, yeah.
Is usually the best place.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Publix, I say that, and I noticed Publix moved their duck and geese into the center.
Nice.
I'm like, okay, well, now I got to go into the center of the store to get that.
Like the meat?
Yeah.
I didn't even know they even sold that.
They do?
Like I buy my bison there.
Yeah.
Grass-fed bison and grass-fed beef and stuff like that. But I didn't know they had geese and
duck. And it's one of those that, I say that, my mother says, what are we going to have for supper on Sunday? And I'm like, we're having duck. Oh, I'm not eating duck.
Duck stew, duck. What do you do with it? Just same, like some kind of.
I steam my duck first. And do the same thing with geese.
A whole duck, or
it's a whole duck? Yeah,
man. They sell this at Publix.
Yep.
What the heck?
But I do it, and then I steam it, and as all the fat comes off the duck, drops down.
Yeah.
If you ever travel to France, they cook everything in duck fat, and
so you keep the fat.
Oh yeah, I steam it, and then I turn my pellet grill on. I get that sucker 500 degrees with the aluminum grates down, and then I take the duck out. I split it in half, and I lay it down skin first. It makes it crispy, and it's.
Do you eat eggs?
I do, and
that's a whole nother. And like I said, y'all hang on, because this conversation is going to go over the place, because we're so much aligned, because people look at fats and they look at eggs. It's like, oh, that's going to increase my cholesterol. Such a myth. That's what somebody has put out in the media to scare you from eating good foods. And so far we've talked about, I make my own beef tallow. Yeah, a lot of fats.
I eat my own lard. When a pig goes to slaughter, I get the fat off it and I make lard. We use that to make biscuits and to cook with. Anything we've got to put on the stove. And I don't take cholesterol medicine, and my cholesterol's under 200.
Yeah, man.
my doctor hated it when I first started this journey. He was like, no, this endocrinologist. And he's like, no, well, as time went on, now he's not saying anything.
Right. Yeah.
So I have we're back to cholesterol. He asked me a question about 6 months ago. He said, are you still taking your cholesterol medicine? I said, no. He says, well, what do you mean no? I said, you can take that off. I'm not taking it ever again. I don't believe my cholesterol was that high.
Yeah.
And the way I eat now, and he says, well, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to have to send you for a cardiac CT. And I was like, well, I don't have chest pain.
Yeah.
I said, why am I doing a cardiac CT? He says, well, let me tell you, a cardiac CT is going to be a score from 0 to 499. Anything over 250, you've got to go have a heart cath because we've got a problem. And he said, you can have this done here. And I go to a doctor in Atlanta. And then I found out I cannot go have it done at his office. I had to go to a different office.
Wow.
So I teach people that our brain can cause some amazing things, but it can cause some bad things. And my brain started being bad. I started, oh my gosh, I'm 70 miles away from my wife,
right,
and I'm going to have this done. I'm going to end up in the hospital. I refuse to take cholesterol medicine.
Yeah.
And my brain literally
was.
And when I got to there, I walked across the parking lot. I had to walk up to the third floor. I went up the stairs. I don't go up the elevator.
Right. Yeah.
Doing all the healthy stuff, and my brain was telling me that I was fixing to die.
Man.
And I went in, and the lady running the
high.
Oh yeah, the lady running the CT. I said, when will I get these results back? And she says, you'll have these back on Sunday. This was on a Friday.
Okay, good. Thank God. You wouldn't have to wait weeks.
She said, you've got the portal, right? And I said, yes. And she goes, this will be loaded on the portal on Sunday. And she goes, this is going to take about 3 minutes and we'll be done. You'll be out the door.
And the longest couple of days, though.
And I got in the car, and my wife was like, look, your A1C's 5.3, your insulin consumption's way down. You move every day. Nothing bad's going to come.
Right.
Sunday morning, got ready to go to church, and I had my watch on, and email popped up, and I said, uh-oh.
There it is.
I pulled it up, looked at it. My score was 5.1.
Whoa, that's super low.
Yeah.
Considering the freaking thing went up to like 499.
Yeah. And anything over 250, you get a heart cath. Mine,
you weren't even on the radar.
Yeah.
Hardly.
And I think back 2 years before that was done, I quit eating. I don't eat vegetable oil, don't eat corn oil.
Man.
We make most of our stuff. And the stuff that we don't make, you can actually buy it if you wanted to. If you wanted to go buy beef tallow, you can.
You can.
You can go. I don't think anybody here in our town has duck fat, but if you go to Marietta, you go to Whole Foods, you can buy duck fat. And let me tell you, a quart of duck fat is going to cost you about $30.
Son, you can just cook in that or fry in that.
Yes. And it can handle heat. I want to say this about olive oil. Olive oil is meant to be consumed,
not cooked with.
You should never heat it up.
It damages
it
the
does.
nutrients. You can drink it, but
if you look at the front label of olive oil, I wish I'd have brought one because I've got a ton of them. The front label will say extra virgin olive oil.
Right.
If you flip it over and it says this is a product of Morocco, Spain, Israel, Morocco, that is not extra virgin olive oil.
Man.
So the olive oil orchards will press their oil, and when they have extra, not enough to run a full batch,
right,
they will sell it to a co-op.
Dang.
And the co-op just buys and buys and buys and buys. Well, the olive oil industry says that if 49% of that is extra virgin, you can put that on the label.
Son.
So I want to challenge all of your listeners. Take olive oil at your house and pour it on a spoon. and then you can turn it over. You don't have to fill the spoon up. You can drip it back in the bottle and then lick it. Keep it in your mouth for a second. If it tastes like pepper, if it's got a peppery taste, that's extra virgin olive oil.
If it don't have the pepper taste.
If it doesn't have the pepper taste, that's not real olive oil.
Man. But like you said, a lot of people cook with olive oil.
Right.
Because they think it's healthier, which it's probably healthier than vegetable oil, right?
Right.
But it's not giving you any of the benefits from it.
But once you heat it up to 300 degrees, it's now just a lubricant. It's not
it's just
all the health benefits went away.
So if you want to cook with the oil that's got a lot of benefits, that would go back to would you say avocado oil or coconut oil or
avocado
macadamia
oil, coconut oil, macadamia nut. So I have my own. So I reckon my daughter says that I'm crunchy because I have a cold press and we're from Georgia, so I press pecans and I make pecan oil.
Dang, son, you got all your stuff.
Pecan oil, I took it to a lab just to see, can you test it? Can you do it? And the guy was like, sure. He said, does it have what's its smoke point? I said, well, according to Google, its smoke point is 400 degrees. We heated it up. It was at 510 and still didn't smoke.
Son.
And he said, wait, we need to do some more tests on this because I don't see this with oils.
Right.
This is not, and this is natural coming from Georgia.
That's amazing.
And I don't understand why we don't.
I might have to buy some of that from you.
Oh, I get you
pecan oil.
Yeah, I'll get you some pecan oil. And it's not it has a good flavor, but it's it can handle heat. So if we're sautéing stuff in the skillet, we use
vegetables,
avocado, coconut, or pecan oil.
So what other foods? I'm just curious because what foods are you actually frying, like deep frying? Is that what you mean? Or are you just putting it in a skillet and cooking sauteing mushrooms, bell peppers, onions?
Yeah.
You're not taking a piece of meat and putting almond flour on it or anything like that and deep frying it.
No.
I just want to make sure because our listeners might be confused too.
No, I use oil very sparingly.
Just the saute
so
stuff.
I'm not a as a nurse, as a diabetic, I have learned how to count carbs, calorie count, and fat is the most dense energy source out there. So it needs to be limited.
9 calories.
9 calories per gram.
Versus 4 on the protein and carbs.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. That's why, and you may agree, why some people struggle, and you're going to see that there's pros and cons to keto, people doing keto, because the keto is a trendy thing.
It is.
A lot of people do keto incorrectly.
I would say 90% of them do it incorrectly.
And I tell people, because you hear it all the time, I have people come in that says, look, I've been doing keto. I've lost a quick 15, 20 pounds, and most of it was water. And
then they stop.
And then they hit a plateau. And I'm like, there's a good chance that you're, from a caloric standpoint, you're consuming too many calories because you take a handful of, a lot of people doing keto are snacking on beef and beef jerky and cheese and nuts because it's keto, quote, quote.
Right.
Well, guess what? That's all fat bombs.
Yes, that's all that is. And it's funny. I have, so I worked in the hospital, and I'll be honest with you, I hate January. I hate it in the hospital because
what's that?
Because all the nurses went on a keto diet.
The keto diet, man. We got that coming up, and trust me, it's still super popular.
They were miserable to be around by the second week. And I hear people all the time with their diabetes, look, I can't get this under control. I'm still having these blood sugar spikes. I said, well, what'd you eat for breakfast? I didn't eat any carbs. I said, what'd you eat for breakfast? Well, I ate 3 eggs and a pound of bacon. Whoa, wait a second.
Or covered in cheese or something like that. Yeah.
I said, just because it's not a carb, bacon's not a meat. Bacon is a fat.
Right, yes. And it's not even really a good protein source. It's a fat source.
It's a fat source.
Just like peanut butter.
Exactly.
A lot of people, of course, the branding people will put how much protein's on the front label of a jar of peanut butter. 13 grams of protein or whatever.
So this is funny. You talk about that. So we talk about eating food that's not genetically modified. Next time you go to Publix or Kroger, or whatever grocery store you go to, when we go, we do buy flour because we make bread, and we buy King Arthur flour.
Is that for your sourdough?
We do it for everything, but
Okay.
that's where we started it. Well, my first sourdough starter came from a King Arthur, but now we use it's called Kamut.
I think that's what my mom uses.
Yeah. If you look at the package of King Arthur and you turn it over to the nutritional side, for every serving of that flour, there's 11% protein there.
Dang.
But it's a real flour. It's not, most of the time in America,
Not bleached.
we moved all the fiber from everything. We're not
Stripped
eating
it,
fiber.
yeah.
King Arthur has the fiber in it.
That's cool. That's good to know. I got to remember that.
And so that's got protein with it too.
I do love me some sourdough bread. So I may have to get my mom to teach me how to do that, because you're right. I love bread, but I'm like you. If I do eat it, it's probably some Ezekiel or something like that, or if I get a loaf of sourdough from my mom. But man, if I could find a way to make my own sourdough bread and have that kind of part of my daily diet, man, that'd be awesome. Have my cake and eat it too.
You're right. And it's it's I like to, when I go for a hike, it's good I can take sourdough, throw it in a container, put it in the backpack. My dogs go with me, so they love to eat. I share everything with them when we're hiking, and so it's a good stopping point. 5 miles into a mountain hike, that we stop and have a piece of fruit and some sourdough bread, and I do that sometimes, but there's a lot of times I can do a 10-mile hike and not eat anything.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So keto, I want to elaborate back more on that.
Okay.
And what is your true thoughts on keto? And from what I understand, keto was made, or that it stands for ketosis. For people that don't know what keto means, and it's basically to sum it up in a nutshell. And you'll agree that when your body when you deplete your carbs, your liver has to start producing ketones.
Well, so your body switches its fuel source
From glycogen to,
so it goes away from glucose and glycogen, and it moves into ketosis, where ketosis is the byproduct of your body burning fat for energy.
Don't you think that's more of a survival tool? When we're humans, I guess probably humans back then probably went into some ketosis.
They lived in that state, and here's what's so. I don't want to
double-edged sword.
It's dangerous if a diabetic goes into what's called DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis.
Okay.
So that happens when a diabetic's blood sugar is way too high. There's no insulin on board. So the body has to switch into that burn state, burning fat for energy, and then it creates a lot of acid. When diabetics are trying to lose weight and they get on this, I'm going to do a keto diet, and they already have some kidney issues. If you're eating tons of protein, even good protein, you said you like buffalo. Buffalo's great.
Yeah.
But it's a ton of protein, and if your kidneys are having problems, it's going to make it worse. Now, I'd like to tell you about my 40-day fast.
Yeah, do that.
So I started doing lots of research. I'm a type 1 diabetic.
And this was when? Along your journey?
Started probably about 5 years ago. And I got 3 years ago, I said, I've got to do something.
I do know, and I feel like there's some great power in fasting.
Oh, yes.
And I want you to educate me and the listeners on your form.
And so I started doing some research. I got on YouTube. I got some books, and I actually had access because when I was working in the hospital, I had access to some medical journal that you had to have logins for, and I kept those when I left the hospital. And I started looking into research into the 60s.
Underground stuff.
Yes. Well, and here's what's funny. It's hard to find it today, but 3 years ago, I was able to to pull it up, medical journals that were based on how they treated people with diabetes in the 60s. And they actually practiced fasting for them. They would let them eat for 2 days, and then they would fast them for 40 hours.
Dang. Okay.
And then they would let them eat for 2 days. So what happened is, when you eat and you have any form of diabetes, if your body's not able to burn that off right then, it stores it in your liver.
Right.
Well, your liver will then store that glucose and convert it to glycogen. When your stomach is empty and you need energy, your liver will release glycogen, and it'll raise the blood sugar up. Once you've depleted all of that, your body will start burning fat for energy, which is the ability to get rid of your love handles. And so I said, well, there's no way I can do like an extended fast, so I've got to start working up to it.
Yeah, like, so for me, like, that's intermittent fasting, you know, like 16-8.
Right.
Like, for me, that's even challenging.
It is
for a lot of people.
It's very challenging because of what's between your ears.
I know, and you can do baby steps. You can start with a 16-8,
right,
and then go. I would love to do more prolonged. And
that's what I did. My first one was, okay, I'm gonna get up in the morning. I'm not gonna eat anything until 4 in the afternoon, and I'm gonna eat from 4 to 7.
And I want to go back on what you said a while ago. That thing between my head, your mind. Okay, so it's funny because the human can go like 30 days or longer without food.
Oh, easy.
But why is it that we get hungry and our stomach's hungry a couple hours, only a couple hours after we eat? You know, it's to me, it's like you've primed your body to eat every couple of hours, so it's almost like another form of addiction to food.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that word. So people are addicted to drugs because the drugs cause a dopamine release.
Yeah.
Dopamine's pumped out of your brain, and you have this feel-good feeling.
Food does the same thing.
Food, when your stomach swells, your body releases dopamine.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're getting this habit of doing this. So I primed for a year, doing intermittent fasting.
Kind of building up to it.
Doing a 24-hour fast.
I've done that before.
36.
I tried to do a 36. I came close. I think it was like 34 hours.
Yeah. So it got to where in that year I did 3 6-day fast in that year. And then when
6 days, so 6 days with no food.
No food.
Just water.
Water. And
can you drink like bone broth or electrolytes?
So bone broth, you can do that twice a day. You can't go more than 50 calories twice a day.
Okay.
And because it'll pull you out of ketosis. It'll stop that fasting. And so you can do bone broth. Like my daughter says, I'm crunchy, so I make all my own stuff.
You like the Kettle on Fire brand?
Yeah. But I found that if I just did beef bouillon or chicken bouillon, and then added herbs to it. I added a little bit of garlic. I added rosemary and oregano to it.
Yeah.
It then made my brain think that I just had a bowl of soup. And but when I got to Lent in 2022, I said, okay, I'm gonna go for 40 days. I'm gonna drink water every day. So we always, as a nurse, I taught people you got to do 64 ounces. That's not accurate. That number was created when we were smaller.
What, 64 ounces of water a day?
64 a day.
To me, that's not enough.
It's not enough. And especially if you weigh, you need to take your body weight, divide it by 2.2.
Yeah, 2.2, okay.
That's your weight in kilograms. Just take the kilograms away and put OZ.
Right.
That's how much water you need.
Gotcha.
And I use Celtic salt. So Celtic salt has 87 minerals, I think, with it. It doesn't really look like salt. It's kind of wet. And I put a pinch of that in my coffee. I put a pinch of that in my water.
Celtic salt. I've never even experimented with that, but I am real big on like
pink Himalayan salt.
Redmond's real salt.
Okay.
Because it's got a good blend of Himalayan and iodine.
Yep.
Because I'm real big on keeping them kind of balanced.
Yep.
With potassium and everything else.
Yep.
So,
and so if you just look up Celtic salt. It's got all the electrolytes and minerals that you need. So when I did my 40-day fast, I made a promise to myself that every time I got hungry, I was going to move.
Just go walk or something
Just go walk. That was it. My wife did not participate in this 40-day fast. So when she got home and would cook supper, I was like, oh my gosh.
Man.
It smells good. I got to go for a walk. And so I walked a minimum of 5 miles every day. On day 20 of my fast, I walked 18 and a half miles.
Dude.
And I did 18 and a half miles out on the mountain.
Just staying busy.
And I did that complete walk on a fast. When my fast was over, my A1C was in even better control. And about a month later, I told my wife, I'm going to go do that 18 and a half miles again, and I'm going to see how I do. I did it 40 minutes slower.
Slower when
I was eating. And so I did a little bit more research into this, and there is a Nat Geo special on fasting, and they go to Africa. And when these tribes get ready, they're out of food, so they're going to send their hunters out. They make their hunters stop eating 4 days before they go. They put them in ketosis because it will make their mind sharp.
Do you think, in a way, there's so many benefits to fasting? You know, I do think that once you cross over, like, say, 24 hours, some really cool stuff starts happening from a cellular level. As
exactly.
Far as, autophagy.
Autophagy, yes.
Bad cells killing good cells killing bad cells and whatever else. We
eat blueberries because blueberries are an antioxidant. Well, that means that it controls free radicals.
Right.
Free radicals are baby cancer cells, basically. So once you get into this, about 30 hours of fasting,
some magic starts
the
happening.
magic happens, and you start getting into autophagy. And so your body is eating its love handles for energy.
Yeah.
And it's also eating all the bad cells.
Yeah, man.
And so what I'd like to challenge you is next time you try that you're going to do an intermittent fasting, let's try to flip it. So you try to do your intermittent fasting by not eating breakfast and lunch.
Yes, try not eating dinner.
Oh, flip it and don't eat supper.
That's what. I want to try that. It's funny you say that.
Don't eat supper and don't eat breakfast, and then eat lunch. You don't. But your body is so smart. It is the most amazing machine out there. If you do the same thing over and over and over again, it'll learn that routine, and it's going to adapt.
Well, it's funny you say that because that's been on my conscience for about a month now, because I have a problem where I can do great through the day.
Yeah.
It's when I get home, whether I've had a stimulating day through a lot of exciting things going on, or whether it's been a stressful day due to bad, it's still stimulation to where when I get home, humans' natural move is to comfort themselves with food.
Right.
And a lot of times I'll find myself going over my calories greatly for that dinner.
Right.
And I was like, well, let's just nip that in the bud and just do intermittent fasting and skip dinner.
Yep.
And that way I don't have to worry about it. And that way you're not even going to bed on a full stomach.
But when you do this, I want you to move when you get hungry. That simple thing, because what happens is all your blood has flowed into your GI tract, and it's like there's nothing there. Right. And so then it starts sending signals to the brain.
You know, it's funny you say that, because I have noticed that I can wake up, because I like doing fasted cardio.
Yep.
I've noticed that some mornings I can wake up really hungry, but I don't want to eat anything because I want to go do my cardio, whether that's at my house on the stair mill or the elliptical or going to the gym. The crazy thing about it is I can do my cardio 30 or 45 minutes, and when I get finished doing that cardio, I'm not hungry. I'm not hungry at all.
No, because
for a couple hours.
All the blood is now out of your GI tract, and it's in your legs, it's in your butt, it's in your arms, your back. And so that's awesome. It's pulled it all away, and the body's happy because all of the muscles that were firing have put your body into this state of pure fuel.
Yeah.
And
I don't think I don't think there's any miraculous fat loss, magical tricks to fasted cardio, but I've always just loved the idea of exerting energy in a fasted state.
Right.
From just a mental standpoint, the endorphins, the sweat.
Yep. Instead
of having a big meal in my stomach.
So do you ever, do you check your ketones?
I don't. I've never, even when I was doing, me and my girlfriend both attempted to do the real keto a couple of years ago, and I don't even think we even got into the strips. We might have ordered them, but
so you can go to CVS, buy
so I wake up in the morning and test
100 strips for $20. Yep, it's just put urine on it and give it about 15. Some of them are 15 seconds, some of them are 30 seconds.
Why would somebody like myself that's not doing keto want to test my ketones?
To see, so if you were going to do just for an experiment,
yeah,
you're going to fast from lunch on Thursday,
skip dinner, skip breakfast,
and then the next morning at breakfast on Friday, you're going to do your fasted cardio.
Yes.
So you're going to drink water. So you wake up, check your ketones, see where they are.
Dang.
You might slip into ketosis faster than me. As a type 1 diabetic, it takes me somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30 hours to start getting into ketosis.
What about non-diabetic? What if it's just a bigger, out of shape person?
So it's going to take them a lot longer to get into it.
Okay.
To start with. So.
Well, yeah, because I don't have as much reserves.
And so if they're obese and they have a fatty liver, my liver was so fat when I started my journey, I laid flat on my back and my liver stuck up above my rib.
You serious?
You could see it. I could, as a nurse, I'm like, that's my liver.
Dude.
And I told my doctor.
Man.
And that was when the light bulb was like, hey, you got to do something. So these people that are obese and they're trying to get into ketosis faster, they're eating nothing but protein. And so the body is just dumping glycogen left and right.
And protein spikes it
spikes it too.
It spikes it too.
You want me to tell you why? Because you chew, your mouth's moving, your brain's saying, here comes energy.
Right.
It gets in your stomach and there's no energy.
Gotcha.
So the liver has to start, the liver's like, there's nothing there.
Right. But
make the blood sugar go up so it dumps out glycogen.
If you eat that protein with some fats, does that help?
Well, so my thought on that is if a type 2 diabetic is trying to lose weight and then they keep adding fat to their diet, you're not burning
That's
it
true.
anymore. You're now storing it again.
Yeah.
So your body is your refrigerator freezer at your house. If you can live out of the refrigerator, that means everything that you eat gets burned up immediately. So if you start adding too much fat to your diet, then it starts going to the freezer. Well, your freezer gets bigger and bigger and bigger, just like your body.
So this is where I'm still learning, even in my 23rd year into this journey of health and wellness and watching thousands of hours on YouTube and self-experimentation. I want your opinion on that example of a person that's let's just call it a really out of shape person.
Okay.
350, 400 pounds, pre-diabetic, let's just call it diabetic type 2.
Okay.
Hadn't had any healthy habits ever in their life. They were struggling. So you're telling me that they would probably make more progress if they was to focus on the fat intake versus overall calories? Because this is where the whole calories in versus calorie out is confusing, because I've always thought that it's a calorie is a calorie, but I do know that foods get processed differently in the body.
Yes.
50 calories of this food is going to get processed differently than this 50 calories of this food. And I think that's where you're kind of getting at.
So fat takes so long to break down. So let's say you have somebody that weighs 400 pounds that they want to get in shape. They're willing to put forth the physical effort to do activities. If you flip them and you feed them white rice or a baked potato, and when I say, remember what I said, we have these for a reason.
Yeah.
So you have to look for a baked potato that's the size of your hand,
right.
or that you can do half of it and it looks like this.
Yeah, a fat source the size of your thumb.
Yeah. And so give them a baked potato, because now they have that baked potato. The body will immediately go into a burn state if they're exercising. This potato is in their GI tract, it's breaking it down, and the body's going to use it. Well, when the body uses that up, it's immediately going to start eating everything out of the liver. You've got to get the liver back healthy before you can destroy the rest of the fat, because the liver is going to be your lifesaver. And so you look at these, you look at military personnel, and I'm not talking about just standard military personnel. I'm talking about your special forces.
Right.
These guys go 4 days high physical activity, and they're not eating.
No, man.
Now they're drinking a ton.
Yeah.
And they're eating really high glucose things that is going to give them the energy when they're going through this. But when they're doing this, their liver is actually dumping all the glycogen that their muscles need. The liver keeps you alive. So when we take somebody with obesity and they have diabetes, especially type 2, and they're insulin resistant, I'm
glad you brought that up.
We need them to eat where the insulin knows it gets back into doing what it's supposed to do. And
that's not doing keto.
And that is not doing keto.
And how important is it for these people to move their bodies?
Our body is not meant to sit still.
Because you got a lot of people that think they can make massive progress just through diet alone, but still sit on their butt all day.
Right.
I'm like that's such a snail pace.
And you lose weight. The number one way, the only way to lose weight is to be in a caloric deficit.
I'm glad you agree on that, because I think me and you both agree on that, but we both also agree that there's different types of calories and how it's processed.
You're absolutely correct. And then they have to move.
They got to move.
Is so important. Our body was designed to move.
Are you talking just walking? Or are you talking about how much would it help a person like that goes from like walking to maybe walking and then maybe 3 days a week of some kind of resistance training, whether it was through resistance bands?
Yep.
It don't take hardcore weightlifting.
Yeah. And not to the point of being muscle sore 2 days later.
No.
I'm talking
just
maybe a
just a dumbbell workout at home.
I kind of like that little, like the next day,
little sore.
Hey, I've got this little bit in my shoulders, but exactly. And so, I mean, I'm a firm believer in moving. I hiked the Georgia section of the Appalachian Trail. And that was actually what started my journey on fasting. Is I started the trail at 256. I got to Bly Gap, North Carolina. I weighed 256.
That's awesome.
And you know, I wasn't losing any weight. I gained some muscle, but we live here. We're home of the 7 Hills, and
yes, lots of cool places around here people don't know about. They live here.
If anybody wants to, if they want to take a couple of hours out of their day, we won't put a backpack on. We will go to Myrtle Hill. It's not a big hill.
No,
you can drive around it in your car in less than probably 2 minutes.
Yeah.
There's a parking lot. We got 2 parking lots to pick from.
Yep.
And there's 7 staircases that go to the top.
Oh yeah. And
I will take you up all 7. And when we're done, you just did 5 miles and 110 flights of stairs.
Wow.
And I used to take when I was getting ready for the AT, I started walking it with nothing.
I love it.
Then I put my backpack on with nothing in it just to get used to it being there.
Yeah, man.
And then I loaded my backpack down.
Between that and then just downtown, Clock Tower Hill,
yes.
Just walk it. That's what I do. I just walk it,
so
go a block and just walk it again.
So I've got a half marathon. You park at the baseball stadium, walk all the way to town, and you do all 7 hills of Rome, Georgia.
Dang, when's that happening?
I do it on a regular.
Oh, you do it on the regular. It's not like a public announcement.
Yeah.
thing.
I go.
That's your thing.
And so I walk all 7 hills. It's amazing. You get to see some beautiful sights, and part of it's in the woods. You know, you've got Blossom Hill and Jackson Hill.
Yeah,
those are all woods.
Jackson Hill's awesome, and just the trail system in Rome in general. You know, I got the smoothie shop right there against the trail. I can go out the back door, hop on the trail system, and how blessed am I to have that opportunity to do that on like a lunch break.
Yes.
And just super, super blessed, man, to have the access to that. And the trail system, Rome is doing a great job.
Oh, yes.
Tying all these together. You know, they got a couple more bridges to install, but once they get them all installed, you're going to be able to cover like crazy amount of distance.
I can't wait. They've got the bridge at the end of the Mount Berry Trail.
Yeah.
And I'm
eventually this is supposed to connect to Berry somehow with like a tunnel over or underground, or how's that supposed to work?
Well,
you got to get over 27 somehow.
I thought at some point it was just going to go to the mall, but I heard that they've made a change to that.
To me, it needs to loop back around,
and it's going to hook right back up
to the Brave
on
Stadium?
the Armurchie connector.
Yeah,
it's going to hit right there, which is fine because, I mean, if you start at the post office, and you go to the end of the trail and back, that's almost 4 miles.
Yep.
And it's going to be wonderful if I could park on one side of the river and actually walk all the way around.
Can't wait.
And I mean, I love moving. It's not I still watch TV, but we live in a day where, you know, I don't have to be there to watch it.
Right.
When it comes on at 8 o'clock, I can watch it the next day without commercials.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, definitely don't move enough. And, you know, I if you got all these tracking gadgets, you know, and I like data. So like a lot of times people have iPhones, and a lot of times what I'll do is when I'm first working with a client, a new person that's sedentary, I'll say, hey, do you keep your phone on you most of the time? And they're like, yes. I'm like, do me a favor, open up your health app. And it will actually tell me their daily steps average. And some of these, man, are low, like under 5,000 a day.
Yes.
You know, like I'm seeing some like 1900s, some 2800s.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just not enough movement. And if you ask them, they're like, yes, I get up, I walk from my house to the car, drop the kids off at school, walk from my car in the office, which is like 3 steps.
Yeah.
Work there all day, sit on your butt in a cubicle, walk back to your car, go pick the kids up, go back home. And that's like, you might do a little bit of walking around the house. Yeah. You know, but that's about it. I'm like,
and it's, I do this challenge with people that, call and go, I need help with my diabetes. And I go, okay, I'm going to tell you what the numbers say. The numbers say that you should move 150 minutes a week.
Okay. So how does that break down?
So that ends up being like 22 minutes a day.
It's a mile a day. It's walking a mile a day. You know,
I don't like, and I'm going to tell you why I don't like it. 150 minutes, you could actually get 150 minutes on Friday night, going to a football game, and then going for a long walk on Saturday.
And the rest of the week, you're bumping the log.
But you're still a human those other 5 days. So I believe you should do a minimum of 30 minutes of movement every single day. And it's hard to remember between our ears that brain plays games with us. So I like to tell people let's go out, and I want you to take your phone and I want you to do your timer for 15 minutes. And when it gets to 0, it's going to alarm. Take your phone out, turn it off, and then turn around and walk back to your house. You walk away for 15 minutes.
You got to get back.
You got to go back.
That's true.
Unless you're going to call for a ride.
All right. I like that.
So now your brain is now thinking, I only have to go 15 minutes.
Versus 30, yeah.
But now I'm done, and now all those steps going back home are easy.
It's true.
So there's and I learned this by learning to hike, talking to people that hike, and they're like, if you want to ever through hike the Appalachian Trail, which is 2,200 miles, if you live in Maine, you should fly to Georgia and walk home.
Whoa.
If you live in Georgia, go to Maine and walk home.
That's what that would be like.
It's easier your brain, you're now playing a trick on your brain.
Man.
So when I tell people to walk for 15 minutes away from their house or their office,
I like that idea.
Then you got to get back.
Yeah, and that you can, or I give them a steps goal. Like if a person's averaging say 3,000 a day, I say let's just shoot for 5.
Yep.
that might require you to, hey, instead of parking right at the office door, park further out,
right?
And then go for a 10-15 minute walk, and even just get it up to 5,000. So there's a couple of different ways you can attack it, but I do like that one. I do like your idea.
And it's
on the 15 minutes
like
out.
You say, we all have trackers on our phones now, so we can actually you can put that as your home screen.
So one 30-minute walk from a steps perspective should give you around 3,000 steps, because a mile is 2,000 steps. You can walk a mile in about 20 minutes. So 30 minutes will be about a mile and a half.
Yeah.
Depending on how fast you walk.
Right.
You might power walk, but you can probably do 2 miles in 30 minutes.
I do a mile about every 16 minutes.
Dude, that's trucking.
And that's I can still talk.
Yeah, that's good.
I can carry on a conversation with my wife and at
awesome.
that pace. But that's a workup pace. You're absolutely correct. I mean, my first mile was probably 24 minutes.
Right. Yeah, and back on the word insulin resistance. A lot of people toss that word around a lot. Just because somebody is really overweight, and whether they're pre-diabetic or not even pre or diabetic, is everybody insulin resistant? Or if you're in those shoes, if you're a person that's 400 pounds, pre-diabetic, is there a good chance you're insulin resistant?
More than likely. So insulin is a growth hormone. The more insulin in your body floating around, the more your body's going to store. That's what its primary goal is, to get glucose into the cell, and its secondary goal is to make storage. So
insulin resistance means, say it one more time.
So insulin resistance is the body's inability to use insulin appropriately.
Yes.
So we need to think of insulin as a key.
Because that person's been eating so many processed foods and sugar.
It's probably from they gained a little bit of weight, and that was because they were eating a lot of carbs. The insulin had to keep coming up, and then I believe that they started on this keto journey without an appropriate coach, and they ate too much fat.
Man,
and so fat gets in the cell. So insulin's a key, and you need to think of a cell as a door. So if you've got your doors there and you eat an apple,
right?
You eat the plantain.
Yes.
And that plantain has fructose in it.
It does.
That needs to get into the cell. If insulin's not there, it can't get there. Gotcha. It just sticks on the outside. But if we eat way too much fat and we have fat free floating in our body,
just
triglycerides.
Yes.
That's if you have a client comes to you and they have labs, take their triglycerides and divide it by their HDL. If that number is greater than 2, they are insulin resistant.
Dang. Okay.
So my most recent labs 2 weeks ago, I'm at 0.5.
What's a good range? Like what's not good?
Anything over 2 is insulin resistant.
Okay.
So if we can get that number down,
and you say to get that number down, you can eat carbs.
Yes.
Just lower your fat intake.
You need that fat intake probably needs to be under 40 grams a day.
Gotcha.
And you need to move.
But eat, rice, sweet potatoes,
yes.
Fruit.
Yes. And all those things that you're eating fruit. And I tell people all the time, I want you to eat your fruit. Don't drink your fruit.
Juices. Yeah.
Juices don't have fiber in them.
Nope.
So if you want orange, eat that whole orange.
Yeah.
Don't eat the peel. That's it's got way too much oil in it and make you sick.
And we don't have enough time to go on the whole kid sipping on juices all day long.
That's
terrible.
But when we do that, all we're doing is we've removed the fiber from that. Yes, there's vitamins and minerals in that. I'm not going to argue that point. But there's no fiber, and you didn't chew.
No, man.
When you chew, this is muscles.
8 ounces of grape juice would be equivalent to like a 5-gallon bucket of grapes.
Yeah,
it's insane. Like
yeah.
what it would take.
You couldn't eat that much.
No.
Yeah, it's and so it's we have to change the way we're eating.
So we're about an hour and 10 minutes in, and I want to close this. In the next 15 minutes, if we go into an hour and a half, that's fine. But I want to kind of point the gun,
okay,
as we close. So for listeners that are listening to this that are pre-diabetic or type 2, and they have been reeled and tricked into the whole keto thing, you know, and they just say they've tried the keto thing, they still think carbs are the enemy. What's some advice you can give that person? Like what would their day look like? What would you recommend them do for like breakfast, lunch, or even fasting? Is fasting a way to reset some stuff?
Fasting is the fastest way to reset it. Okay.
What kind of what kind of fast?
So I'm a firm believer in
the intermittent.
That fasting is just like working out. You got to build that fasting muscle. So we have to
start off with intermittent fasting.
So it is. So here's a little phrase. Wake up, don't eat, let your glycogen deplete.
Okay.
All right. So right before you wake up, your brain knows you're fixing to wake up, and it's going to dump all your hormones, and it's going to dump glycogen because it needs that blood sugar to come up so that you've got energy when you wake up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would definitely recommend starting out trying to skip breakfast.
And I agree. I feel like fasting, intermittent fasting, is a way of kind of helping your body restart, reset button internally. Like,
and so, but it's a routine. So you need to do that like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Right.
And then on Thursday, if you wake up and you're hungry, let's eat something, but let's eat something that's whole foods. Not instant grits.
Jesus foods.
Exactly. Let's go to Jesus foods.
Yeah, did Jesus have instant grits? No.
You have, you can do something as simple as take a quarter cup of oats, take a banana, smash the banana up in the oats, put it in a mason jar, and fill it. You can fill it up with water if you want to do something more extreme, or if you wanted to put some almond milk in it.
It's like an overnight oats, soaked oats.
And soak that, and the next morning you eat that. Well, now that's carbs. You got the banana in there, you've got the carbs in the oatmeal, but you also have all the fiber.
Yeah.
And so after you've done intermittent fasting, you've skipped breakfast and you're not eating until at least 12. Then you need to flip that and have breakfast and try to see if you can do breakfast till breakfast the next day.
Okay.
So you
play around with it.
And what's happening is you keep your body in a constant state of, I don't know when the food's coming, so I'm going to burn on a regular rate.
Yeah.
Metabolism's going to stay better. And the greatest thing of when you have that hunger is do something different. Which
goes back to what the word intermittent really means.
Right.
A lot of people get too zoned in on the intermittent blocks of something you do daily, and it needs to be more sporadic, like what you said.
And so I'll tell you, the month of October, on the first day of the month, I ate from sunrise to sunset. Okay. And if I was hungry for 3 meals, I ate 3 meals. If I was only hungry for 2, a lot of times breakfast for me can literally consist of 2 cups of coffee and I'm fine.
Dang. Okay.
But then on the second
coffee beans is a kind of is it an appetite suppressant?
It's got caffeine in it. So it's that's an appetite suppressant a little bit. But on the second day, so after the first day at 7 p.m., don't eat anything until day 3 at 7 a.m. So I fast for 36 hours and eat for 12. The whole month of October.
So person that's just new, diabetic,
yep,
try to start easing into some fasting. Even if you got to do like a 12 and 12 is huge for some people. Some people can't even do that at first.
So here's the first thing that I found was the greatest on my journey is only eat at mealtime. So if you're going to have breakfast, you eat breakfast. You don't wait 2 hours and eat again.
All right. So
your body has to break down what you ate. That takes time.
Yep.
If we're eating 6 times a day, your body your GI tract has no rest period.
Right.
I talked to a GI specialist about my fasting, and he said that if everybody in America started doing what you did, I would not have a job.
You wouldn't have a job, yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? He said, because every time you do an extended fast, your GI tract regenerates itself.
True.
And so it's always fresh. And I'm like, okay. So that is something that, those very first things is we need to learn that food's got to be our medicine and food is needed. And there is no such thing as I used to always say there's no such thing as a bad food.
That's what I try to preach. I know what you're saying. I don't.
But they need to understand
how
that
they affect your body.
Vegetable oils, high fructose
that's
corn
bad
syrup,
foods. I would agree with that. And red number 40, which is I try to avoid.
Yeah, red 40, yellow 5.
It's ridiculous, man.
Those are foods that are not allowed in Europe.
I know. That's what I'm saying, man. It's and they wonder why kids have so many attention disorders these days, pumping them full of all the food colorants.
And our adults are in that range too of
there's a I'm not going to name it, but there's a popular protein powder that has all the catchy branding. It's labeled after a popular breakfast cereal, but in the ingredients, it's red number 40, yellow number whatever, and edible glitter. Edible glitter. You've heard of that?
I have not.
Edible glitter. Yes.
So does it sparkle when you make it?
I think it does. If you were to take a scoop of that powder and dump it out on a table, you would see it glistening.
That's just, why would we eat that?
Oh man, I don't know, but yes, Jesus foods, and I talk about how I always like to challenge just my listeners and even on my social media to try to eat 5 Jesus foods per day.
Sure.
If just America started doing that alone, just work in 5 Jesus foods per day.
Yeah.
And like I said, if Jesus didn't have access to it, then it's not a Jesus food. Sweet potatoes, red potatoes, fruit, all that stuff. So meat, fish, eggs.
They ate
honey.
He had bread all the time.
Yeah. You think they made sourdough bread?
No, well, I don't know if they would have called it sourdough back then.
Who knows? Yeah.
But
some kind of fermented bread. It had to be fermented.
But look at what they did. I mean, look at these blue zone areas in the world. And one thing that you see in all those areas is these people move every day. They might not be going to a gym. They might not be getting on an exercise bike, but they get on a bicycle and they ride to the town to get their groceries. And then they ride back. We don't do that.
So
and we can do that.
Yeah,
we actually
move more.
I'm not telling people that, you live 10 miles from the grocery store, you should walk to the store every week. Drive to the store, but make that conscious effort to park on the back row.
Yeah.
And just get more steps.
Yep.
So we're fixing to hit the cold winter months. And so if you go to a Walmart, a Walmart Supercenter.
Yep.
All right. And they're all about the same. I've done this experiment in 5 Walmarts, and they all hit exactly 1 mile for 5 laps. So if you enter on the grocery side, go out to the outside wall.
Yep. Hug it and just
hug it all the way around. Go all the way through sporting goods.
Yes.
Don't go into the outdoor section.
Right.
Because if it's winter or if it's raining, and then when you get back, stay in the aisle where everybody lines up to check out.
Okay. Yeah.
And 5 of those laps is a mile.
I got a client that actually does that.
Okay.
She's 70 something years old. She's a breast cancer survivor, got a lot going against her.
Yep.
but we're trying to slowly pull some weight off her because she's got some joint issues and stuff like that. And she's down 10 pounds, but it took like 3 or 4 months. Okay. It's a slow pull, but that's good. And she gets her steps in by going to Walmart.
Yep.
And she actually uses a buggy.
Good balance.
To balance herself. Yep. And she pushes that cart. I think she does it for time.
Yep.
It's like 30 minutes.
Okay. So let's do one thing different with her. I want her to go pick up, go into the pet section and ask somebody to put a bag of dog food in there.
There you go. Love it.
You don't have to do the big giant one.
No, man.
Let's just put like a 10-pound bag in
progressive
there.
Overload.
And push that a little bit more resistance.
Yes.
She's still doing the same thing. So she might not even notice it.
She may not.
And then when her last lap, she goes right back to the pet food, say, hey, can you put this back up for me?
I love it, dude, because I think for a lot of people, and a lot of my clients too, it is people that I have probably 50% of my clients are currently in that pre-diabetic, needs to lose 100 pounds.
Okay.
And I encourage everybody to get blood work done too.
Absolutely.
I think that's super, super important. So other than,
and they need to understand that you didn't gain 100 pounds in a year.
No, this has been such a slow.
So it took me, it literally took me 3 years to lose 100 pounds.
I got a client that started with me when he first told me his weight. I was like, okay, this is going to be a marathon. He started at 687.
Okay.
We're down to like 590 now.
Okay.
590 something. So he's almost at the 100-pound mark.
Oh,
but
yeah.
He's had some setbacks. His dad passed away. He had a blood clot, but it's been some times where he just wanted to say screw it, and he's trying to avoid getting the surgery, the gastric bypass surgery.
So
and he,
look.
Do we have enough time?
I will help for free.
Yeah,
I will. Because if you have the gastric bypass surgery, the problem is they take out part of your small intestines that your body absorbs vitamins and minerals from.
See, I didn't know that. I've always wanted to talk to somebody that specializes more in that area.
So you look at
it's
people
more than just shrinking your stomach. You're actually affecting the way your body can absorb nutrients.
And so a lot of times people have gastric bypass. They have to go and have IV iron infusions because you can't eat it. You can't absorb it. It has to be pushed into a vein.
It's good to know because I just thought it was just simple. Is it shrinking your stomach? I had no idea that it actually impacted.
They take the bottom half of the stomach and they take part of the intestinal tract and they just sew it off and they sew them back together. They sew what they've sewn off back up to the very top. But what happens when you do that is you did what I did with fasting. You shrink the stomach down to where you get full fast.
Yeah.
The problem is the stomach is allowed to stretch. So if they don't fix their brain to eat less, it's going to stretch back to its original size.
And then, with the mineral and the nutrient thing still be,
then you're going to have heart issues. You're going to have your hair loss. I mean,
so it's not the end all be all.
It is not the quick fix. And what I'm running into now is more people calling me about these weight loss shots.
What do you think about semaglutide? And
so
it basically slows down the gastrical emptying.
It does, and it actually a person with diabetes, it is a wonderful tool that would teach them to eat less food. It's funny that when I have a client tell their doctor that they're practicing extended fasting of 36 hours 2 times a week, they're like, oh, you can't do that. You need to be eating 6 times a day. But I'm going to give you this shot that literally makes you sick if you tried to eat that much.
Dang, man.
But we're seeing now a lot of patients or a lot of people that have gone through these shots they're going and they're not having an adequate assessment every week, which is, are you still drinking enough water?
they're not being guided correctly.
Yeah, what color's your urine, and are you having bowel movements? And they're not asking these questions. They keep giving them shots.
It's just a puppy. It's like an assembly line.
Yep. And what happens is they're starting to see gastroparesis. And once they have it, you're done.
So it's just like anything else. It's just like you see people that's had success off the gastric bypass surgery.
Yes.
And that's great. There's people that's had success off keto. That's great. There's been some people that's had success off this semaglutide, but I've also got people in the realm of the medical world that has told me about people coming in with some major issues, side effects off this drug.
Yeah.
And I guess that's one of them.
Yeah, one of them. Pancreatitis. If these patients are experiencing some abdominal pains that are strange, left upper abdominal pain, and they're able to fight through it, you shouldn't have to go through life hurting. And that shot did it to you.
And you're right, because I have a lot of people that have admitted to me that they're not feeling very well. They're almost putting up with it and suffering just to keep the shot going.
Because they want that shot so that they can keep losing weight.
Yeah.
But we need to work on the brain.
And like I said, at the end of the day, like you just said, when we close it with this, whether you're getting the gastric bypass surgery, whether you're getting the semaglutide shots, if you're not learning how to eat nutrient dense foods and there's somebody guiding you, there's going to be some problems. You're going to hit a dead end, and that's probably why you said you see so many people that gets the surgeries and they might have a little bit of success, but they kind of end up hitting a plateau or gaining their weight back.
Yes.
And you can't take semaglutide forever.
No.
So that's where people like me and people like you, Richard, are here to help.
Yes.
And then I'm excited to talk to you more about collaborating.
Sure.
On some future clients. You're going to be another tool in my tool shed, man.
That's
because I told you I've discovered that there's a lot of layers and different moving parts to this health and wellness system of a human. And everybody's different and dealing with different battles. I realized a long time ago I couldn't do it alone.
Right.
I can't specialize in every little single thing. I can be pretty knowledgeable about it all, but I know when to pass the ball. So that's why I teamed up with an actual hormone therapy clinic.
Oh yeah.
I got that in the toolbox now.
Yeah.
Now I feel like you're going to be a great asset. So
that's why we need to look at our life, that we don't know everything, and unfortunately everybody has a computer, and it's crazy. You look stuff up on Google and just like insulin resistance, you look it up, it'll say don't eat carbs.
Now, one more question. I do think there's some supplements and natural products that can help. Well, let's just say if you're working with a new client we're trying to get them to eat less fat, moving more, can they eat there's some products that has like chromium and cinnamon and different herbal type stuff they can eat with some of their carb meals.
Yes. And
help some of that insulin control, like traffic directors.
Yes. So cinnamon showed a very crazy, they showed positive glucose results for about 2 weeks and then it went away, but they didn't look into why it got better for 2 weeks and then the result went away. Probably got better for 2 weeks because people ate less food.
Right.
But definitely we are, if you have anybody that's insulin resistant, so if they do their lab work, take their triglycerides, divide it by their HDLs, that number's greater than 2, they're insulin resistant.
Yeah.
So if they're insulin resistant, they need to be taking zinc and vitamin D3. Those are, because if you're insulin resistant, your body is not able to make D3. So
just right off the rip, just from an immune system and an energy standpoint, you need to be.
It.
And
Yes.
I guess you would get the D3 with the K2.
Yeah. And then if you go outside, our body is designed to make our own vitamin D.
Yeah.
But you've now got something stepping in its way. You're obese, you're insulin resistant, or
so
you're
even
type
if
2
they are getting
diabetic.
sun, they're not able to even.
You're not getting enough.
Dang.
We always wear too much
zinc,
clothes.
vitamin D, and then you said if you can splash in a insulin.
If you
think of cinnamon, because there's a product that I have it's a crazy name. It's called Freak Show. It's made by a company called 5% Nutrition, but they call it an insulin mimicker controller.
So it's got
cinnamon, chromium
procolinate in it.
It's got, I think it even has some zinc. It's got pretty much any herbal type product that can help.
And that's good because our food no longer has that. True. Our food used to have it.
And you'll agree with this statement too. And I always tell everybody, my store is full of supplements, and they're not any of them's a magic pill.
No.
But if you take a person that's, like I said, our example, Exhibit A person here that's 400 pounds, pre-diabetic, biggest thing we can kind of consolidate to close this is get to moving more, lower your fat intake, don't be scared of good carbs.
Yeah, whole foods.
And start supplementing with some good vitamin D, zinc.
Yep.
Come see me at the shop.
Yep. And as time goes on, they will start seeing results better. You are not going to lose 100 pounds in a year. If you lose 100 pounds in a year, you're probably not going to keep it off.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm excited to continue learning from you and collaborating on some stuff in the future. And, this just all stem for the listeners that don't know. I haven't known this gentleman, but for what, 48 hours?
Yeah.
You called me out of the blue?
Yeah.
And I don't know
once again, it's that toolbox again.
How did you get my number? Can you remember?
Brendan
Keith. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I was talking to him about my fasting, and he was like, "I've got somebody I need you to talk to."
So this is really cool, man. This is why I like doing what I do, because of just the people you meet, and relationships you make, just like how the hormone clinic came about. Similar story. So I really appreciate you making that phone call.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to the future.
All right, Richard. Well, it's been an honor to have you on, and we'll catch you next time. Thank y'all for tuning in. And like I said, y'all leave us a review and some ratings on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We're trying to get those up some. So we'll catch y'all next time.